So, welcome everyone to the first interview as part of the Blue Sustainability and Society Initiatives project. This month, we are talking about sharks, and I'm really pleased to have Andrea Richey to talk with us from the Hong Kong Shark Foundation. Andrea is the executive director. And we're going to be talking a bit about her work and some wider themes that come out of it. So I wonder if we could start by talking about what does the Hong Kong Shark Foundation do and what is your role in it?
Great. Well, first, let me say thank you very much for having the honor to speak to BSSI and yourself and Ronald. And I think that, it's just a fantastic and very hopeful uh, thought forward that you're interested in shark and ocean conservation. So I'm very excited to be speaking to everyone today. And, my background is that I joined Hong Kong Shark Foundation as a volunteer in 2015. And I was in the corporate world, and I used to be a solicitor or an attorney, but I actually worked in the corporate communications world for a Wall Street law firm. And then I became a recruiter for lawyers. But in 2015, my father sadly passed away, and I sort of was thinking, little bit about what is the meaning of life. And I thought I needed to give back. And so I started to volunteer. And I started out volunteering in 2015. And
Mm.
today I'm the executive director. And it is one of the most challenging. Our focus is on education and corporate engagement to reduce demand, consumption for shark products. But I think that it isn't just in Hong Kong, and this is not just a local problem. This is a global crisis that
Mm.
we're experiencing right now.
Right. I think absolutely, and we'll talk about the sort of global scale
Mm.
of this crisis later on. Um, do you find that your background in law helps in any way in your sort of day-to-day business at the Hong Kong Shark Foundation?
Yes, I do believe that a law degree actually helps you in any business, any role that you're in
Mm.
when you're in the corporate world. Law trained me to analyze evidence, communicate clearly, and understand policy frameworks, especially when we're working with corporates and governments. And I sometimes joke that I used to work for sharks, but now I save sharks.
Right.
So I do find the training I received definitely impacts and is helpful.
Mm. And what do you try to, or how do you try to engage with the corporate world? What do you want them to do?
Well, most charities, most NGOs have campaigns
Mm.
to meet their mission or complete their mission. Our mission basically is sort of five words: raise awareness about shark conservation. And of course, get people to change their consumption habits regarding shark products. And this is all over the world. So for us, for myself, the going out there every day to schools is very important part of our education prong. But talking to the corporates in the corporate world is important because we have a campaign, one of three, and it's called a shark-free company.
Mm.
And in this campaign, it is really a CSR and ESG campaign where we tried to get companies to have their employees pledge to not eat shark fin soup when they are at a corporate banquet. And it's really a win-win-win scenario because when the company has their employees not having shark fin soup at a banquet or at a corporate dinner, it starts a conversation, and sharks should have a seat at that table
Mm.
of conversation when especially when it involves the ocean. And it's a win-win. win-win because the company wins because they're doing their part for sustainability and the planet. The sharks win because nobody's eating them that night, and the client they're going out to dinner with, they or the employees or the friends and families that they may be going out with, they all win because they get to learn something new. It strikes up a conversation where, maybe the client says, why are you not having shark fin soup?
Mm,
And then that's, dialogue begins, and it's a great way for corporates to very easily, at really no cost, and in fact, it's much cheaper not to get shark fin soup at a
mm,
corporate banquet. I don't know if listeners know, but shark fins can be sold to as much as, say, over 2,000 US dollars per kilo,
mm,
right? So that might end up very expensive in when it comes to per bowl, but it just depends how big your bowl of shark fin soup is. But so
mm,
it's easier to measure it by kilos. So that just gives you an idea of how expensive it is and why they call it one of the big four luxury seafood items.
mm,
So that Shark Free Company campaign is a great way for corporates to get involved, give back, and it's a great way for us to understand the corporate needs and help them to tick that box, especially when many companies today have ESG
mm.
requirements. And that is something we are really focusing on in 2026.
Right, thank you. I think there we can sort of see the two levels perhaps of campaigning. There's the personal decisions of saying I'm not going to eat or consume shark
Mm.
products, and then there's the corporate, perhaps higher up level of action. I mean, do you agree with that distinction? And do these the role of the individual and the role of the corporation, do they overlap?
Mm. Yeah. They definitely
Mm,
overlap completely. I don't think you can separate them
mm,
because, one person who's maybe an employee during the day at night goes home and has dinner with the family. And so that same policy, that same ethos should be carried through. Consumer demand influences corporate behavior,
mm,
and corporate leadership helps reshape social norms.
mm.
So both are essential and reinforce each other.
And do you ever find corporate resistance to your campaigning? What sort of difficulties do you find?
Well, honestly, in the 10 years that I've been doing this, I have never encountered any corporate resistance. In
Mm,
fact, it's usually 100%. This is fantastic.
right,
What we get is resistance from the corporate to want to embrace it on a company policy level because the many companies think, well, if I do it for you, then I have to do it for somebody else type of thinking, and
yeah.
which I don't think is really correct. You can take a stand and it's just like plastic, if your company's no longer going to use plastic straws, you can't say, no, we're not going to do that because we still have plastic cups. It's progress, not
Mm,
perfection.
mm,
And so we never get companies that really have pushback saying it's not good. We just might get them to say, well, we can't do it on a global level, but we can do it on a local level, for example.
mm. And just to pick up on, you say you educate people. What do you, when you go into schools, what do you educate children about?
So our education program is for as young as kindergarten students up to secondary, up to university. Uh, we work with students, especially if they're in the IB, International Baccalaureate program in
Mm,
secondary school, because they do have requirements for service. But for other schools, like for example, Harrow here in
mm,
Hong Kong, we work with them very closely. We were one of their five chosen charities in 2025, 2026 school year. And when we talk to them, we talk to them about the global shark crisis, and we talked to them on a two-pronged approach.
Mm,
First is talking about from a critical thinking standpoint, what is the problem? Don't we have enough sharks? How many sharks really are dead? How many are killed every year? What is the problem? Is it sustainable? So we help the students to analyze it because we don't want to just make that presumption that there is a problem.
mm,
Okay. So we want students to understand why there's a problem because actions have consequences, right?
mm,
So that is important, I think, to any youth that to realize that actions have consequences. And so just their eating of seafood constantly is showing that it is unsustainable because for one number one reason, the biggest reason is overfishing. And that overfishing globally is not sustainable.
mm,
So that is the first part of all of my talks. And the second part of my talk is to look at solutions. How students, as young as 6, 7 years old, how can they take action and make a difference? Because I want students to feel empowered and engaged and to realize that there are things they can do just as simply as not eating like animals for one day, going, say, to be a vegetarian or being a vegan for one day has great impact on the environment more than anything else. So, I talk to students about how little things can make a big difference. And I think they get that. And I think that's why we have become very popular and very successful in getting that message out.
mm.
We started education in 2015 by creating a shark ambassador program, and that's the second of our campaigns that we have.
I think the Blue Sustainability and Society initiative, we think about the power of history to conceive of sustainable futures. Does the Hong Kong Shark Foundation, in its educational programs, incorporate history in any way?
Mm. Oh, yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. Because I love history.
mm,
And so one of the things we talk about is uh, shark fin soup and the history of it. And
mm,
so, as we understand it, over 1,000 years ago, there was an artist, poet, who wrote a poem about how to make shark fin soup.
mm,
And the emperor saw this, and so, as a result of that, the emperor started serving shark fin soup at the palace. And
mm,
then people wanted to serve at their big family meals or special occasions something that the emperor was eating. And so, they'd serve it and they'd say, "Oh, look at this. You see, tonight we have shark fin soup. This is one of the emperor's favorite dishes." And so that's kind of how we understand it to have started in China. But
mm,
if you move 1,000 years later to modern day uh, Asia and world, around the 1980s, high-end restaurants started to sell shark fin soup in to people saying that they needed to have it in a wedding banquet.
mm,
And in Cantonese, that's balsam chi to. And these four things are abalone, sea cucumber, which is actually an animal, it's a slug, shark fin, and fish maw or bladder or fish stomach. And so these four things are now the most expensive things you can buy if you
mm,
go to have a banquet in a restaurant. So in the 80s, they started selling this and telling people, well, in a banquet, a Chinese wedding banquet, for example, you really need to have this product to gain face with your
mm,
family and friends. We know that you don't need to, uh, you know, kill and eat endangered species just to garner fame or to garner status, or because it is eaten as a status symbol because it's so expensive. But we know that you don't have to do that with your loved ones,
mm.
especially when you're getting married.
That's really really interesting. We can move on to the global shark crisis
Yeah.
now,
Yep.
and in a
Yep.
way away from shark fin soup, because the Hong Kong Shark Foundation really combats the consumption of all shark products,
Mm, mm,
including shark fins, shark meat, liver oil or
Mm.
squalene,
Yep.
leather, and so on. But it seems
Yep.
that a lot of the conversation has been dominated by shark fins. And I
Mm.
wonder why you think that might be from your experience. Um, and then the ways in which we, as maybe historians and campaigners, we can
Mm.
expand the remit of the conversation about shark
Yeah.
conservation to things like ceviche, and so on.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is the number one thing that people are blown away when they hear my talk, which is, but it's not just shark fin soup.
Mm,
People eat the other parts of the shark. And also the fact that, shark fin soup is highly visible. I mean, you
mm,
can see it. It's a status symbol, right? It's a cultural symbol, especially in Hong Kong. As I mentioned earlier, it really is a Cantonese seafood delicacy. In fact, most people in China have never had shark fin soup.
mm,
And they only have it if they go to something like a wedding or maybe a company banquet or something, and maybe a Chinese New Year. So this is not common amongst all Chinese people, but the diaspora of Cantonese seafood and Cantonese restaurants, those people have gone all over the world. So
mm,
most people, when they think of Chinese food, it will actually be a Cantonese style dish. But the diaspora have changed a lot, and now you can get, northern Beijing and Shanghai, and those places don't traditionally serve shark fin soup.
mm,
So, other products, originally we estimated, so when I first started doing this back in 2015, there were reports that came out saying approximately 100 million sharks are killed every year just for fins.
mm,
Just for fins. But now, in the 10 years since I've been doing this, now the number has gone from 100 million to 250 million, they estimate, because now they're eating the whole shark. And here's the thing, people don't realize that they're eating shark meat.
mm,
This is the thing. So it's become a misnomer that the shark crisis is because of shark fin soup. I honestly think that's just not true anymore. So people consume it, but they're not aware. And they use the liver oil because, again, it was cod liver oil, but now they're using shark liver oil. No scientific proof that that has any benefit in a health benefit to people. They're also putting it in pet food. They're using the leather to make bags and belts. So the demand has gone up, and now this is why they estimate 250 million sharks are killed every year.
mm.
And it is not just a Chinese problem. Absolutely, it is a global shark crisis.
Right, and I think we've not mentioned Brazil yet, which is
Oh,
the
right.
biggest
Yeah.
importer. It's probably just
Yes.
good for the record to say that Brazil is
Yes.
the biggest importer, I think, of shark meat at the
Yes.
moment.
Well, they're the biggest consumer of shark. Right. And when I ask students, for example, I taught over 650 students just this week alone.
Mm,
And when I ask students in my class, what country do you think eats the most shark? Everybody invariably for the last 10 years, the first person raises their hand and they say China.
mm,
And I just believe that is not true. And so eventually they'll come to the answer, which is Brazil. And Brazil has over 223 million people approximately. They have lots of coastline, access to the sea. They have a lot of seafood in their culture. And so they eat ceviche.
mm,
And that is a poor man's fish dish that many people eat regularly. And in fact, in Rio de Janeiro, in the state of Rio de Janeiro, just recently this month, the government has decided to stop serving shark meat in the school lunches.
mm,
So that is a progress. That is a fantastic milestone, and we
mm,
just need to keep doing that. But most people do not know that Brazil
mm,
is the largest consumer of shark products.
mm. And I think as a historian and coming from a historical perspective, there's perhaps really interesting work to do about the historical origins of ceviche and
Mm,
its, I suppose, spread
yeah.
as a product. So
I think
something
you've
to be
just
done
found
eventually.
Yeah, I think we've just found any students out there that want to do a paper on that and an infograph. I
Yes.
think that would be our first point of order. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Um, I think as a final question, um, recent research shows that global shark mortality is still rising, despite increased regulation and amazing campaigning like that of the Hong Kong Shark Foundation. So on a organizational level and also on a personal level, how do you feel hopeful, remain feeling hopeful when it seems that you are fighting a losing battle in a way?
Mm. Well, there are many organizations working on this issue.
Mm,
They approach it maybe from different ways, but we're all trying to save sharks, okay, and raise awareness about shark conservation. But I do see collaboration increasing. I see local organizations are particularly important here or in the UK because they're looking at consumption patterns
mm,
and cultural contexts vary around the world. So we really need to work together more. And I have to say, sadly, the Maldives, which has been a place that has always had, well, for as far as I know, 20 years at least, had a no shark fishing, no killing of sharks, so that they're protected. But I have to tell you, that has recently changed, is my understanding.
mm.
And supposedly, the um, the driving force is the tourism factor from mainland China.
Right.
That when tourists go to the Maldives, what they want to do is they want to have shark fin soup at these fancy, expensive restaurants.
Mm,
So that is where a government needs to stand up to the cultural demand of a tourist. And it's just the same for ivory. Tourists used to come to Hong Kong to buy ivory because we were like the number one place in the world to buy it. And no long, it is now illegal to buy, sell, trade ivory here. So times change. We don't have child brides anymore, and we don't do foot binding in China. And it's okay to challenge cultural norms and cultural traditions, I believe, when they don't benefit uh, specific groups and they don't benefit the planet. And they
mm,
are definitely unsustainable. So we're doing our best to work together. If anybody knows anybody out there that wants to collaborate with us, like BSSI, we need to do more things like this and more
mm.
campaigns. And it's not easy. Change takes time, but we focus on measurable progress, like reduced corporate servings and increased youth awareness. And we really
Mm.
do believe that education is the way to combat many of the problems we have with shark and ocean conservation right now.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrea, for your time. It's been absolutely wonderful speaking to you.
Thank you so much, Noah, for allowing Hong Kong Shark Foundation to speak to you today. And thank you to Ronald for reaching out. And we are absolutely delighted to be working with BSSI and everyone in 2026. Thank you.